Heyo, it's your girl Aaron, and today I'm going to be playing some Minecraft. So, I'm going to be playing on my classy version of Minecraft, the Infinite Snapshot. And I have a peaceful server. And last episode I was doing the room of the nether portal room. Portal to the nether, that room, which is this room. Yeah, I was doing that, I was working on that ceiling in the last episode. So today I need to continue working on this room, basically. So yeah, hopefully my audio balance is a bit better today because yes, well, the last episode I feel like I had the music a little bit too loud. So I tried to put it down a little. But yeah, okay, so I think what might be important is to grab a whole bunch of nether rack. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have any on me. Nope. Okay, so I think I need to grab a decent amount. So let's go into the nether and just mine some netherrack. I do have a diamond pickaxe. So by the way, the music that's playing, if you want to know what the artist and title of the song is, it should show at the bottom of the screen. I'll also put the artist in the description. And a lot of the time I will put together a playlist and try and find some new songs and stuff. But today I'm just playing through my playlist of all the music I've used previously. But there's like more than 10 hours of playtime, like 176 songs at the moment, so I don't think we'll hear the same song twice, although it's possible when things are actually random. But yeah, the music I listen to is usually, well, it's pretty much always either royalty or copyright free. So usually it's like people who are releasing music under the Creative Commons, but there's a few artists that have their own licensing model that amounts to the same thing. And there's a couple artists that I've asked if I can use their music just to be safe, because I wasn't sure. So I asked them before using it. Yeah, the roof being bedrock is pretty cool in this room, I think. I think what I want to do is clear up the hotbar a bit so you can tell how fast I'm gathering netherrack. What is the full name? I'm being too energy efficient. So, yeah, I'm playing during the day today. It's the weekend. So, that's why there's a whole lot more light shining on me. And you might not even be able to see me properly. Yeah, I don't know if music in my ears may have been bad loud. I had Tad, but I took Tad away. So, we got The Drive Home by Dr. Vox. If I remember correctly, it was a really good song. So this room, we're gonna turn it into a room that's themed like the overworld. eventually. Not sure if I want to get to that right away or leave it for later. Might be more interesting to try find the stuff I need to go into custom portals. It is a bit harder to obtain certain blocks on peaceful. And you know, I'm not like a die-hard, I will never cheat or anything type person. Like, if possible, I want to try not to. But yeah, so that's the reason why I thought it would be cool to do a peaceful run on Infinite Snapshot, because there's a whole lot of custom dimensions that might have blocks that you might be looking for, just to increase the capacity of, you know, what I can get. And yeah, I don't think I'll need to, but if I had to choose between, like, you know, if, like, let's say for example I couldn't get what I need to go into a custom portal, like, that's the entire point, you know, so if I wasn't able to get that stuff, then I might sort of cheat those blocks in somehow. But I mean, a lot of the blocks, there are ways to get them, so we'll see. I mean, if it's a choice between, like, oh, you can get it but it's only in a stronghold, then I'll go look for the stronghold. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about, like, no, there's literally no way you can, like, you need a book and a quill. So yeah, that should be possible. But I also did want to try not to kill animals or anything. So if I need, like, ink from a squid, I might have to, like, find squids swimming near a ravine and hope one of them kills itself or something. I don't know. I just think that violence on that doesn't need to be a part of Minecraft. And that too many games use it as, like, a core game mechanic, and the people who might not find violence a fun gameplay mechanic, like, does really reduce their options. Screw. So I guess, like, this room, there's no, like, major reason why it has to stay full. Could be large. It would not be a downside to making it bigger, let's put it that way. Just a bigger canvas would take a longer time to fill. Like, I was worried that the nether room, like, I was making it too big, and I mean, it's taken, like, a really long time to actually convert, so maybe, but at the same time, like, just barely gonna fit the actual idea I had in of having, like, multiple biomes and stuff, and nether bridges and all that. Like, couldn't have made it a lot smaller and still pulled that off. I thought of, like, will I make that room bigger? I don't really have any plans to do that at the moment. like pretty close to the floor of this cave thing. Let's see. Well, I'm the one making the cave. The geographical feature in which I'm digging. I don't know if you heard that. Hiding a candy. Not letting me get over. There we go. Like netherrack, you break it really easily, especially with a diamond pickaxe. But the diamond pickaxe, your ability, you actually notice it going down because of how many blocks are getting broken. So get quicker to get blocks, but also means you're wearing down your pickaxe quicker. But yeah, I wonder if that's enough. I mean, we can always come back if it's not. I wanted to see if the grass grew back. Kind of feel like some of it has, but I guess we'll do it for now. So, I need to finish the walls, I think. Go up here, those out of the way. Okay, so here it looks like... Okay, we have a problem. But fortunately there's no lava underneath. I was wondering if I had made this mistake or not. It looks like I have. I think the best thing to do... Oops, too far down. The best thing to do when working underwater is to get a door. But I have a source of air. Let's go grab a door. I think I lost like 50 something doors in the last episode. But anyway, I still got a bunch. I just won't take a whole stack with me this time. Never know when I'm gonna die or lose up. Like the other time it wasn't even lava, but all that netherrack had despawned already when I got... So the problem here is that I used cobblestone on the end when I should have been using nether. Because it's the actual perimeter. So here's an air source. Get some airs. Now what I could do is make a cobblestone wall around the nether. That's probably the best thing. Because also, like, not sure if I want there to be... Stop pulling me down! Okay, wait. Oof, where's my door? How am I not getting air? Oops. I don't know what happened to that other door. I was pretty sure I was like going into it. Okay. So, yeah, the plan is... I think I'll put a cobblestone layer over the netherrack. Stop it! Okay, now there's got to be a door somewhere. Betrayed. Maybe I should have taken a whole lot of doors with me. I feel like I'm going wildly off. I'm gonna go back in. I don't even know where those doors are, like... Stop pulling me down! Okay. You know what? I'm gonna go get some more doors. Because like, when I'm running out of air, and I can't see them, like, to just keep looking for them is a recipe for death. Because if I can't find them, then it's over. So, I'm better off like going back to the hole where I know there's air, but then it defeats the whole point of having doors because, you know, it takes longer. So yeah, maybe I'll put one of these doors on top. I know that's like one place that I'm pretty sure I'll put one here. And then bubbles are really, really annoying. Like that. I didn't even place the block. Just pulled me down. That one was giving me air. Stop it! Oh my word. It's literally killing me. Getting pulled down. So stressful. I don't want to get deaded. The freaking door down there. Let's put it like there. That part actually. Oh, I don't know what's up. I'm underwater there. Oh, here's the door. I thought I put it on top. Okay. What I was trying to say was that I don't know if having exposed netherrack aesthetically, because that's giving away what's on the other side. Try not to get grumpy. That looks like a door. You know, half the problem is that it's so dark. So what if I... And I'll do the same thing here. Or can I? Not really. Unless... Yeah, first. That's not... Okay. Yeah, I might need to get a bit more cobblestone. Cobblestone's one thing I have no shortage of. Not kidding. Great, pump the mic. There was a cheat. Okay. Paint the floor. Like I can't even do the row or the double stop. Stop it! Out of trouble. Oh, easier to find the doors at least. Hey, we got a home. Just want to do this column here, right next to bubble. Yeah, it's kind of easier doing it in shift is done. Then you can go up quicker. Concentrate. Let's try to get down. Okay. So that might be done. Got random blocks all over. End of the world. Area shouldn't have any. Nope. Nope. Theory, I shouldn't have any problems now. Picking out cobblestone. Place netherrack there. gravel. Like, wondering if the gravel's gonna fall down and water's gonna come pouring in. Okay, cool. Okay. Why do? How is there like... What are you doing there, sir? Sir? That's it. That is not gravel. Gonna be cool. Take that jump. Fine. Place a block. Yep. Okay. Ooh. So, I guess there was something I wanted to talk about in the ramblings part of the video. I was just thinking about how you get different modes of consciousness. And one example of that, which I kind of heard of from other people, is when does somebody see themselves as a person, like, who is sort of a singular unit? Do they see themselves as part of the community, or do they see themselves as part of the entire, like, human race type thing? So it's not really about thought, not what you think, it's more what your what the context, you know, it's how you think, not what you think. Maybe that makes sense. So like, you know, so like, let's say there's a natural disaster and your neighbor has a tree fall on their gate, whatever, and you know they need help moving it. So now, what is happening? This sounds very bad. Dolphins, what are you doing? So yeah, so it doesn't mean to say that someone who sees themselves as an individual would not help. They might help the dog, but they would help them they would help them because they think it's what they should do, you know? It's like they want to be a good neighbor, or they have a personal set of values, and it's like hard to put into words when you actually try to. especially while you're concentrating on something else. But yeah, so basically, it's like they will see the negative thing as happening to somebody else, and they are helping somebody else out, but they're not, nothing negative happened to them personally. So like, I don't know, maybe you ask them, hey, how'd your day go? And they're like, oh no, it went great, but my neighbor had a rough time. But like, if you're operating in a communal mind mode of thinking, and someone's like, how are you doing? That you, like, you would immediately sort of think of your community and be like, whoa, Jesus. Be like, so how are you doing? And be like, oh, I've been better. Neighbor had a problem. So like, what's going on the other side then? Did I mess up the other side too? Fuck it. And then, yeah, I mean, there's far better ways of explaining it in examples, but keep trying. My pickaxe has been a bit... Wondering if I'm going to hit any more lava. Hopefully yes. Apparently, can't place a block on. Can do as well. Aha, there's like whole obsidian here. Obviously some ravine there. Well, that's probably the ravine I was in. Okay. Do not need that. I'm going to break this and place the lava before it falls on me. Oh no, we're actually fine. If that killed my pickaxe. And then someone else who might have like a global mode of thinking, you know, and you're like, how was your day? And what happened to your neighbor would be like, and you're like, oh well, my neighbor didn't have such a good time, but global coronavirus cases were down today. Yes, it's a pretty good day. Like, so I don't know, I'm just touching the surface of trying to explain that. I actually needed to make another pick. Oh no, I'm running out of diamonds. Why do I have a fish on me? That was probably a dolphin. Oh no. Feels Batman. Why do I have bone meal? Okay, so yeah, so it's kind of like where's your head at? You know, where's your head lie? And when you receive information or whatever, like how is that information processed? Rather than any specific action. So, you know, it's kind of like how Minecraft has different game modes, like survival, creative, and like, let's say, oh no, let's say you see yourself get set on fire. Well, I guess difficulty settings are also kind of like game modes. But yeah, if you see yourself get set on fire, you're like, okay, I must be in survival because in creative you don't get damaged by lava. So the same thing can happen to you. You have a different way of interpreting it. So I think that does end up being under relevant to politics. So, I mean, it may sound similar to the concepts of collectivism and individualism, and it's actually kind of related to egoism as well. So, individualism is okay. It's gonna be a while to unpack this, but we have some time. So, like, there's the traditional definitions of it. Traditional definitions of it. Then there's the ones that I think make more sense. So the traditional definitions for individualism are that it is someone who thinks that individual liberty is like the most important thing, that an individual should never be forced to do something they don't want to by others, even if when the others are all in agreement, like there's a whole lot of people in agreement, they still don't believe that they should have to do what the others want them to. In the traditional definition of collectivism would be the opposite to that, where people think the collective interests of a group of people should supersede the individual. Now, the first major flaw with the traditional definitions, I would say individualism is like the reaction to collectivism, the traditional definition. Which is ironic, because the traditional definition of collectivism is kind of like crypto-individualism. But yeah, so damn, that was close to as high as you can go without dying. Okay, that wall done. And that was like one of the most problematic walls. So yeah, okay, so I would say that individualism is a reaction to crypto-individual. Traditional definition of collective. Because it is like it's like defining itself by not being that, basically. But ironically, it is that. Just in a different way. So, but So we got to start off with the traditional definition of collectivism. We want to understand the problem with the traditional definition of individualism. So the traditional definition of collectivism is that the collective's interests should outweigh the individuals. Now, there's a major flaw with that philosophy, and that is that a collective, a grouping of people, that isn't real. Like, the people are real, but there's no real collective. The collective, you know, it's a label for the people, but like, let's say all the people in a group decide that they are against vaping. Okay. But you are an individual who likes vaping. Now, if you actually think about it, it's imaginary might be a word that makes more sense. The collective is an imaginary sort of entity that you picturing in your mind as being a stand-in for all the people. But in reality, let's say that you do continue vaping. Who is it that actually comes and like enforces their law? There's some kind of like coercive force at play, some police force, or you know, security, or some authority to hurt you or like force you to do what the, in quotation marks, collective wants. So that's people who are making a decision. So like that, let's say they call the, you know, community police on you. That police person, in that moment when you're vaping, you're like, and then they're like, hey, stop right there, that's illegal. That individual person is choosing in that moment that that you should not have a say over your own action. So there's no like, you know, like robotic, like it's not like a robot called whatever you're, like let's say it's the I don't know, the Bat Collector. I heard about that. There's no like robotic bat hive mind that you are all obeying. No, you're obeying an imagined consensus, imagined collective decision that now, at the same time, you know, so that's the first major flaw, is that collectivism as stated simply isn't a real thing. There is no such thing as a collective will. There's a collective of people and there's what they want, but the organization or institution or nation, or whatever it is that they are using as their group identity or whatever, is imaginary. It's not a real thing. Just people, you know. So you might be disobeying what whole bunch of people want, but although we talk about it like the collective is a real entity as if it's a person, it's actually every action and decision is enacted and done and said by people, individual people, not some force or spirit or entity or artificial intelligence or whatever. No, it's people. So now the second major problem is that if such a collective had any type of hierarchy, like if they voted someone in to be a leader, if they had laws and police, because that's an inherently hierarchical governing structure, if there was any way for you to have authority over other people, then no matter how much you call the thing collective, the hierarchy is made up of people, and those at the top of the hierarchy have more power. So even if you have something like voting or whatever, they still have the ability to frame things and manipulate things to their favor because of their position. So if there were to be no hierarchy, the only problem would be that there's no such thing as a real collective. And in that case, individualism would be pointless because there's no hierarchy. Well, no, there's no. If there's no hierarchy, then it's literally impossible for anyone to force you to do what they want, or any group to force you to do what you want, because without hierarchy you're at equal power or whatever, equal authority, and so you not wanting to do it is just as valid as them wanting to do it. And societies that don't have hierarchy, they would have to solve disagreements by actually coming to some kind of agreement together. You wouldn't end up with one person winning and the other losing. You'd end up with both people agreeing to something, that whether one person's able to fully convince the other or whether they make a compromise, either way. So there's no force. So so we have to assume that the collective that individualism is framing itself against is hierarchical. If it wasn't hierarchical, the entire argument would be meaningless. There would be no mechanism for any collective to force them to do anything. So when they say collectivism, they must be thinking of a hierarchical situation where maybe a group of people can decide something and then use some kind of violence, police force or rule enforcers to force you to do what they want. That's hierarchical. If there's no hierarchy, then that's not going to be possible. So now we see the massive contradiction is that, wait, I need to go back to why. So we know that they are definitely thinking of a hierarchical system when they say that, there's a collective that they don't want forcing them to do things. Now, I need to get more lyric. Now the problem with that is that, if a quote-unquote collective has a hierarchy, and a hierarchy is made up of people, and the people at the top of the hierarchy have more power, then their imagined collective, this imaginary entity that you think of, it only exists to give those people power. It only exists, even if there's voting, that hierarchy exists so that the winners of the votes get to force their will on the losers of the vote. Or if it's more of like a dictatorship, then that collective only exists for those people to dictate their will. There's no, that the collective itself is powerless in the face of the individuals in power, and the decision being made is being made by individuals, not the collective. Because the only way a collective could make a decision is if everybody in the collective made that decision. If some of them make the decision and some don't, but you have a mechanism in place to force the ones who didn't to do what the ones who did do, that's not a collective. That's not the collective will. That's some parts of the collective will and coercion to force the other parts of the collective to go along with it, even if it's not their will. So, if you have hierarchy, then it's not ever going to be the collective that has power. It's always going to be individuals using a collective identity as an imaginary, so it's kind of like if you think of religion, how someone who is like a very sort of fundamentalist, maybe fundamentalist evangelical Christian, the kinds of people who would be like implying things like that being homosexual is a sin, like the Bible never saying that originally, was translated. But so that's what they're doing when they go to other people and tell them they need to stop sinning. What they're doing is saying that there's this external, set of rules, not them personally, it's not them, it's the Bible, it's not them, it's God. In the meanwhile, it is actually them. They actually are the ones making that decision. They choose to hold on to the mistranslation. They choose to interpret it in a way that is hateful. And so that's what happens when you have so-called collectivism, but a hierarchy, is that collective identity and any laws that they come up with becomes like your religious text, so yeah, so it's not real. They're using, it's like, there's like theological fallacy called appeal to authority. It's like that, but like when you like bet your entire worldview on that fallacy. I guess to some degree it comes from not actually thinking, oh goodness me, wow. Comes from not thinking people should be able to make decisions for themselves. I think you know better. Just trying to go in back to the nether as fast as I can. Don't want those items to all just despawn. Now I have to try and get down there. I didn't bring anything with me. I wonder. Got some blocks. Maybe that'll be enough. Maybe I should look for okay, back at water closet. Yep. So I need to down that's like kind of a problem. Probably making some not the best decisions right now. I don't want to waste too much time. Okay, I think I got everything. Well, I have the... Oh wait, didn't I have a diamond axe? I actually need the slides. Okay, doesn't look like my axe survived. So yeah, anyway, I have the blocks I need to get back. Maybe I should like make a pathway. In case this happens again. I could like do one. I don't know how easy it's gonna be to water to. So yeah, I don't think you can call something a collective. If it's actually individuals using an imagined collective identity for individual power. Like, if you look at something like, say, Soviet Russia, I would say that that is a individualist societal model who used a collective identity as the justification to give individuals power over other individuals. So I think a lot of, so I personally don't think it makes sense to call collectivism anything but a non-hierarchical model where decisions by the collective are made by a consensus rather than certain individuals manipulating the collective to enact their own decision, even if the mechanisms for that are by popularity. A bit more of a way to go. Maybe I should hold up this center. We'll get back to discussion in a moment. I can't really afford to not. Wasn't letting me turn off. Fell so far down. Do I even have enough blocks for like, I might not actually build out the overworld style from here, but what? Good idea to some amount of building to default. Might need a bit more. Yeah, the rack. Could use more. Yeah, okay, so maybe I can get back. Okay, so then the problem with using the individualist label is if that's the reference, then it's accepting the faulty framing of the collectivist as actually representing collectivism. So think of, like, there's two different ways, there's probably more, but there's two opposing ways you can interpret particular ideology or opinion argument. You can straw man it or steel man it. So when you straw man an argument, it is like you act as though you are responding to the argument, but you actually you answer something that person isn't saying, but is a lot less strong of an opinion, but it sounds similar to what they're saying. So it's kind of like an attempt to bait and switch. You'll attack this imagined weaker version of the argument, that vaccine version of it, and if people accept that what you are actually arguing against was the stronger version, then you can win the argument without ever actually countering it. Just counter a weaker version of it that isn't actually what the person is. And that's something right-wingers do all the time. And it's not something anyone should do, in my opinion. I think it is manipulative and bad faith. So I think everybody needs to practice steel manning when they disagreeing or criticizing something, rather attack the strongest version of what you are arguing against, because that way, if you are able to make a good case and win that debate, someone's not going to come around and produce the actual strong version, and then people who may have been convinced by your opinion before suddenly like, oh, that actually sounds good. And even if you did have an argument against the actually good version, they may not hear you out or listen to it because you've wasted that opportunity by arguing against something that, and that's something people do. Even people who call themselves leftists and stuff seem to do this all the time. And one way is when people act like someone like Elon Musk is like a supervillain. They are strawmanning. They're attacking Elon Musk's personal ideology or whatever. The weaker version that isn't real. Maybe they haven't actually spent the time to learn what his personal ideology actually is or not, but either way they don't argue against it. They argue against a weaker imagined version that isn't real. And that's kind of what's happening when you call something like the Soviet Union or whatever collectivist is. That's a straw man of collectivism. It's a non-real weaker version, because the collective never gets power. Only individuals who manage to get their way to the top of the hierarchy that the collective is a part of get to see their will enacted. And that's not collectivism, that's individualism. It's existing to give some individuals power over others. Just because it uses collectivism as its branding doesn't mean that's what it's doing. The Democratic Party isn't that interested in giving equal power to everyone the way the word democracy implies. The Libertarian Party in the USA is a right-wing ANCAP party who wants to maintain capitalism but do away with the state, despite capitalism being on par with the state for equally like the worst possible things for freedom, but so like the definition for collectivism that I think makes sense is if it's the collective itself that gets power. And that only happens when everyone individual has equal power. That way, when they work together, if they decide something, it's everyone in the collective is deciding in agreement, then you can say that all of those people decided that thing. You can't do that if it was something like there was like a vote, and the people who lost the vote, they're like being forced. Then that isn't a collective making a decision. And there'll be individuals at the top of the hierarchy facilitating the forcing of some people to do things they don't want to. In an actual collective, you'll want to do, you won't be forced to do anything. Worst case scenario, as part of your membership, you'll have to spend time coming to agreement with people. But that produces a much healthier society than the alternative. Okay, we might have enough netherite now. Making decent progress. Yeah, so personally I'm a fan of collectivism, but not the fake strawman version, the steelman version of collectivism. The collectivism as makes sense for the label, you know, isn't something in name only. I'm not a big fan of individualism, and one of the most annoying things to me is when people, for example, read an author like Max Stirner and say that he was an individualist. Like, he was an egoist. That's the word that you should be using. When they say individualist, it's like they're trying to explain away what egoism is, but they're making a huge mistake, because egoism is not individualist. But instead of trying to explain egoism, they're trying to conflate it. That block is not supposed to. Get out of there. Okay, I think here I'm just gonna I'm gonna leave this side. It doesn't have to be like perfectly smooth. Get rid of the stone there. Oh. But yeah, the reason they do that is because they think of, you know, egoism's, you know, value of not giving other people authority over yourself. And they think that sounds like individualism. But they're using the, you know, the wrong framing of collectivism to come at that word individualism. Yeah. Hey, a piece of lava got saved. So, just wondering if I should add some more onto the bottom while, yeah. Like, maybe you shouldn't see the bottom of the portal. We could have an extra whole layer. That's, don't want to be here. I'm gonna get you closer. So, yeah, so like egoism is like to not give anyone or anything authority over you. And that includes ideas. That's the real new hot take part of egoism. Criticism against giving ideas power over you, and that's also, as you might notice, you know, what I was saying about individualism is, I see, for me, individualism is when, the steelman version of it, which does actually match how a lot of people use it, but most of those are on the right. So I don't actually think individualism is left-wing or can be. I think some people who are left-leaning or left-minded get conned by individualist talking points and get sort of almost moved right by it. Might be able to take these torches out when the lava's back. There seems to be a gap up. Okay, so now clear away obsidian, although I kind of think I need a way out. From the floor level there. Because once the lava's in, you need to be able to get out. That's fine. I can always cover up the hole if I want to. Now, leave it there. Service tunnel. Yeah, basically I think that individualist thinking versus collectivist thinking, a lot of what people claim is individualist is actually collectivism. And a lot of what people claim is collectivism is actually individualism. And that's why I think there's a harm in sticking to the traditional definitions. Because then the word, that straw manning of the ideology becomes, the only one people are discussing, and you actually completely miss out on the Steelman versions. So the Steelman version of collectivism, it's a synthesis of individualism and it's like a synthesis of the wrong version of individualism and the wrong version of collectivism into something that is right, because it has the collective coordination while maintaining individual autonomy, because the collective is non-hierarchical. And that's the Steelman version of collectivism. And the Steelman version of individualism, well, is it still meant to be in contradiction to collectivism? Because if it's in contradiction to the Steelman version of collectivism, yet means the exact same thing. Because when we talk about Steelman, what are we actually saying? Is Are we talking about what would be the best ideology to have? Are we saying what is the most characteristic of its label or word or whatever? What, you know? So I think it should be what's most characteristic of it. So like, because if it's like what would be the best ideology, then just be like, oh well, the Steelman version of capitalism is communism, the Steelman version of individualism is like you'll never get anywhere, because certain ideologies are like objectively better if what you want is a healthy society where people in it are happy and can do the things they want to do and have a good life. Not all ideologies can provide that. Most can't. So when we talk about Stillman, it has to be what's most characteristic, and you know, believing that what you want is more important than the collective wants. That is not one of those healthy society pictures. You know? Equal power is fine, but thinking you should have more power than others, you know, then you don't need to coordinate. If your neighbors have pets and they don't want you to set off fireworks, you'll just be like, well, I like fireworks, screw you. I'm an individualist. Like that's much more individualist than collectivist, right? You wouldn't call that kind of attitude collectivist. You would call it individualist, in my opinion. And for me, that's what characterizes individualism, is disregard for what others want if it doesn't suit you. And that isn't what like anarchism is about, for example. The O in the anarchist symbol stands for order. If you are like causing your neighbor's pets to get like harmed and hurt for your amusement, that's not order, that's chaos. You know? That's not anarchism, that's you thinking that your individual, you know, desires are more important than the collective you're in, that you should supersede them. It's not, you know, that's like, you know, if you take the traditional definition where they claim that the collective shouldn't have power over the individual, in that sense, it's actually they're claiming the individual should have power over the collective. And so I think that once you go down that road, you are basically on the path to fascism. So, you know, I think we need to have collectivism to have a healthy society. But the Stillman version of collectivism, one where, you know, everyone has equal power, where if your neighbor doesn't want you to set off fireworks but you do, you work it out together to a point where you're both happy with what's going to happen. Whether that means you go off, like, I don't know, they've got a yacht and they lend you the yacht to go into the middle of the ocean and set the firework off there where there's no animals, you know, or whether you go and invest in fireworks that don't make big noises. You get silent fireworks. The bang is there for show. But you come to an agreement together in a way that you both can be happy. That's collectivism. Not being forced to do it because, you know, the law says, but it's like when you unpack down all the different layers, it's individuals who had the, you know, the ability to get their beliefs into law. And that's a huge problem when, for example, a huge amount of people are let's say, considering themselves straight and thinking that it should be illegal to be homosexual. You know? That's where the problem comes in. That's individuals trying to get their will enforced via joining together. And I think that is a good description of fascism. I'm completely honest. And the same can be said for nihilism. While, like, nihilism is useful as a sort of philosophical experiment. It's something that you can engage in and come away with, you know, maybe it alters your, it might alter your, the way that you think of things, but it's not meant to be a place you stay in. It's not meant to be something you live in. It's like finding out that money isn't real and then basically just go around stealing everything, and someone's like, oh yeah, I'll give you $10 billion, you can do whatever you want, no strings attached, and you're like, haha, whatever, money isn't real, I don't want that. Meanwhile, you could have said yes, taken the money, and taken 100,000 people off of capitalism with that amount of money by creating like a mutual aid production chain. But you would have never done that. Your response is just, money isn't real, YOLO, whatever, I don't care. Oh, and you're like trying to walk out a shop with a whole bunch of groceries, and the grocery attendant's like, aren't you gonna pay for that? It's like, no, money isn't real, bye. It's like, that's the, if you were to be a nihilist, that's the level you're operating on. Like, oh, nothing has intrinsic meaning, YOLO, I'm just gonna live like this forever. Oh, you want to tell me what to do? Oh, you can't tell me what to do because what you want has no meaning. It's like, you haven't gone anywhere. You've gotten stuck in like a recursive loop or something. Like, you're not, it's like, you're meant to be like, okay, if I can't point to any source of meaning, I can't say meaning comes from God, I can't say meaning comes from the country, I can't say, meaning comes from my emotions. But what I can do is find my own meaning in them, see what I think is meaningful, and let that be meaningful to me. And that's like, okay, money isn't real, but it is, there are uses for it. Meaning may not be based on anything real, but finding meaning in things can be useful. And you take that exercise, in like detaching meaning from authority basically, and then use it to reconstruct your own meaning, and like, okay, if meaning doesn't come from an external authority, it must come from something internal. And that's the step you take beyond nihilism. Whether that is you are personally invested in the success of the human race for whatever reason. You don't have to have a reason for it. If it feels meaningful to you, that's fine. But treating it as if it's backed by, some meaning authority, and that nobody's allowed to disagree with you because some external authority has imposed that meaning upon you, that's wrong. But choosing it for yourself is fine. And that's kind of the problem with nihilism, is it takes, that philosophical experiment of, you know, where do we actually get meaning from, and everywhere we get meaning from is non-authoritative. Okay, well, meaning, then you can't impose meaning onto other people with that understanding, because you know that there is no authoritative reason to do that. But you can still have meaning for yourself, because you still have authority over yourself. You still have the ability to choose to have meaning for yourself, because you don't need an outside authority to make those decisions for yourself. You do need authority to force other people to make those decisions. But if you're not doing that, then, you know, and the same as like some people who may be nihilist want other people to not find meaning in things, which goes against, you know, the whole principles of nihilism. Is why would you think that your lack of sort of belief and meaning should be forced onto other people? You can encourage them to, but force is the problem. You can want it, but you should not be wanting to force it. But I don't want that. I don't want nobody to find meaning in anything. I think that's like, you know, philosophically dead end. I think, you know, because that is literally like a rabbit hole you can go into and never come out of. You, like, why would I make Minecraft videos if nothing had meaning to me? It's basically like, if you don't move beyond it, it's like self-destructing your soul. You have to step beyond it. You have to realize that it doesn't matter that you're not given meaning externally, that being able to create your own meaning is good enough. And that's the core. That's the core of egoism, is the ego. And by the way, egoism is not the same thing as being egocentric. An egoist isn't someone who thinks they're the most important, or that the world revolves around them, or that they don't even necessarily need to care about their ego. They just be. The ego is the border, you know, everything within the borders of your consciousness. And you should be able to find your own meaning internally and pursue it. And for me personally, one of the things that I find meaning in is nature and science. I find meaning in those things. I'm a curious person, and I like my curiosity. It makes me learn a whole lot of stuff, and I enjoy having those knowledges. So for me, my curiosity has meaning because I enjoy it. And so, you know, science is one of the best, not institutional science, mind you, but the scientific approach, or the quest for understanding things in as an unbiased way as possible. That quest is the biggest solution to curiosity. And so I find it meaningful. I find nature meaningful because I'm an organism, and I have, you know, physical experiences like thirst. Actually, no, I don't really get thirsty. I tend to just drink because I like the way it tastes and I don't want to get dehydrated, but I don't really have a sense of thirst. But not everyone has all the same senses anyway. But I have experiences. I have hunger, I get tired, feel pain, and I also have a brain, and I understand the way that brains work. Brains are optimization machines. They are neural nets. They are designed to take information in and make sense of it, and to optimize the conclusions that they make, and to get better and better at doing the things they do. And all of those experiences of having a brain are things I find meaningful. I enjoy getting better at things, enjoy optimizing, and that comes down to problem solving. Brains are problem solving machines, and I enjoy having a brain, I guess. Some people may not enjoy having a brain, and they may not find meaning in problem solving, but I do. And because it's things that I enjoy seeing other people having the things that they want, having a fulfilled life, happy. It's not always, it's not always like making me like happy, but I enjoy it in a sense that my life is richer for it happening. I like being connected to society. I like a social experience, and obviously not always pleasant, and you have to socialize with people that the experience of socializing with them enriches you, but that can be done. And so those are just for me personally the things that I find value in, even though there's no external authority or source of meaning. It's easy for me to find my own meaning in things, because what are the things that make me want to keep living? What are the things that make my life better when they're there than when they're not there? Those things have meaning to me. I can't force them onto anyone else. I can't force someone else to eat the same types of sandwiches I eat just because I enjoy it, because that might not be something they enjoy, but it has meaning to me. And so that's, it's better than having an external source of meaning, of saying like, I'm only doing this thing because, I'm only doing this thing because something else told me to. There should be things you want to do, and they actually are what you want to do. It's just that you may not be optimizing for a richer experience if you are thinking of external authorities as a source of meaning, where maybe there's a dissonance between those actions and what would actually make your life a better experience. Like, if you were, if you have a job where part of the job involves like telling people no, like let's say you're a bank and people asking you for loans and you got to say no to them, like that's an experience that's negative. That's not a good example though, because unless you're being forced into that job, I mean, well, like, you may place like your own survival as meaningful enough to engage in things that aren't meaningful to you at other times, but the danger is when you internalize those external sources of meaning. Like, if your boss tells you to smile, that's because they want to portray their company as having a certain attitude, because they think that'll make more money or whatever. if you internalize it, and even when you're not at work, you think you need to smile more often or whatever, then that's not good. So yeah, egoism is about being a creative nothingness. To start with an empty slate and to be creating yourself at each moment of each day, to create and recreate yourself in the form you most want. And maybe you will have some consistency from day to day, maybe you won't. But yeah, I think it's important to have meaning internally sourced. Yeah, I guess I started off talking about like modes of consciousness, but that's kind of what I mean is like, if you are coming at the world with a certain perception, like if you think that the world is a PvP game where it's player versus player and you winning comes at the cost of other people losing. I like the song, but it's a lot louder than one before. But if that's the mode you're operating on, that you think that's the game mode of life, you're going to act differently than someone who thinks the co-op. And that while he may be forced to compete with people because of the systems that are in place, but that's not the way it has to be. That you can play in a cooperative mode and work together with people to try and change the default mode into a cooperative one. And some people find meaning in trying to impact the world and trying to improve it the way they think it can be improved. That's part of, if they're having a brain experience, having this neural net in your head that wants things to be optimized, can include wanting to optimize the whole world. But you've got to do it, for me, you've got to do it in a way where you are thinking through things and not just, repeating what you've read or having, like, copy pasting somebody else's ideas, not spending the time to really go through those ideas and figure out if you agree with them or not. Like, if you have an opinion and somebody comes and disagrees with it, are you able to defend your opinion and to explain why you believe it? And if that person has a better arguments, if they have an opinion that you find to be more optimal than your opinion, that it answers something that your opinion doesn't answer, for example, then you should be keen to immediately change your opinion to theirs, because your own opinion was built out of all these different building blocks, and whether they use the same blocks, just rearrange them in a different way, or new blocks or whatever, but you realize that maybe one of the blocks that you previously were using to build your opinion has flaws in it, and so your opinion is weaker. And if you make that block stronger, it changes the whole. But if you just copy pasting ideas, if you just in your mind, I think a lot of people, are trying to identify what they think is the correct opinion, usually that somebody else has written down or whatever, and then you make it your goal to try to basically attach yourself to it and use it as as a religion in a way, not to actually think critically about it and even be willing to disagree with that opinion or author or person or whatever. Like, are you willing to put their arguments in your own words because you have internalized it, or are you just keeping it as an external authority and using it, you know, when the discussion comes up? But it's, you know, so sometimes it's good to internalize things and sometimes it's not good. It's good to internalize your own, you know, the things that you're going to claim to be your own personal beliefs. Those should be internalized. Those shouldn't be taken from external sources. Although you can use external sources, but you need to break them down and think about them critically and then build it back and know all of it, know each part, so that you can defend it, you know, because sometimes an idea will have unintended consequences, and if you don't see those consequences but you go along with the idea and perpetuate it, you can be part of a problem you aren't even aware exists. Whereas if you break it down, then at least when someone brings up the problem that you're not aware, that you can see that, oh, it's this part of that, you know, this section of the ideology, this brick in the building of ideas is problematic, and maybe when you take that brick out, your entire idea house falls to pieces and you have to, you know, figure things out again. But what a lot of people do is they don't want to figure things out again. They don't want to go through the trouble of learning a different way of thinking or a different perspective. So they would rather just completely reject any alternative opinions as wrong, using that authoritative external source as the reason to reject your criticism or whatever, and never actually considering it for real, never really critically analyzing the ideas, but just treating their ideas as a sacred text that, you know, usually was written by somebody else. Although I guess when someone like that comes up with their own idea, that would be kind of like being a cult leader or whatever. It's like you come up with your own external authority, but then I think most of those people don't really believe it for themselves, just a performance. So much nether, so much obsidian. I think I need to go get another axe. So yeah, it is the weekend. I might be able to play a little bit longer, but okay, what was the bet? Oh, but the downside to that means it's gonna take a hell of a long to upload. Guess I can dump obsidian. A lot of obsidian. So I don't think, oh, the only other thing I need to do is to put in the lava at the ceiling, but I kind of need to do the lava lake first. So I guess there's a chance that somehow water gets in when I do that, and if that happens I may just cry. But yeah, I'm pretty keen to at least get like the shell of this room done. And then maybe before I put the lava in, I should put in the rest of the like items, because then it just makes it easier to move around and build. Yeah, that can be it. Clear the obsidian, then build the rest of the biomes, then put the lava in, and then do the lava waterfalls from the roof. But somewhere in there, I need to get a bunch more iron. So I thought it might be fun to go to the glitch tunnel, go looking for iron. Fun to explore sometimes. But I'll get a bit more obsidian. Yeah, I might not be able to upload this anytime. Or what I could do is I could stop this one and start recording a second one and upload them as 2 episodes. That might actually be the best. Okay. Well, then I need to get a screenshot. Where we are. I don't know if I feel like maybe some grass is grown, but not much. Where am I going? Yes, something like that. Probably it. Screenshots. Okay, so I will see you in the next episode, which I'm going to actually be recording right now. Bye.